As a senior speechwriter for President Barack Obama, David Litt grew used to hearing his words spoken by somebody else. But now he's speaking for himself. In a new book, it's called Thanks, Obama, My Hopey-Changey White House Years. David Litt joins me now. So I want to ask you, you started off like right out of college working on the campaign.
Yeah, I was one of those college seniors who, 2008, I did not think I was going to be involved in politics at all. And then I saw President Obama as a candidate. He gave a speech January 3rd, 2008, and by the time I was done watching that speech on TV, I was one of those people who would not shut up about Barack Obama.
Like so many people who ended up working for him say about their experience. You write here, I wrote some truly bad speeches. Some were overly technical, some were boring. A few were just flawed but embarrassing, like poems you write in high school and find years later in a drawer. So what makes a good presidential speechwriter?
I think the important thing is to be able to weave both the policy side, because these are important technical issues, but also the narrative and the story. So to connect an issue, whether it's education or the minimum wage or infrastructure finance, which is not that engaging, but to make it engaging through these stories and using it to tell just a piece of our broader American story.
You write about how when President Obama's credibility started to erode, approval ratings at 40%, which you say was the same number that George W. Bush hit 3 months after Hurricane Katrina. What's it like writing words for the president when, as you say, perception is reality? How do you change that perception?
Well, in those moments, you're always going back to things like his 2004 convention speech or the 2008 campaign. And one of the times I actually loved writing speeches for President Obama wasn't just in the good times, but in the bad times when you get a chance to remind people or to help remind people why they fell in love with this person in the first place and why they believed, and hopefully give them the tools they need to believe again.
Take us back to that 40% when his approval ratings started to fall. What was happening?
Well, that was right after the launch of healthcare.gov, and the first few months of the website, to put it mildly, did not go great.
Yeah.
And it had been a difficult time because we didn't see it coming in the way that we had said in speeches, go to the website, sign up, it'll be like going to Amazon, and it wasn't. And it was a moment when we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if the website was going to get fixed in time. We thought it would, we hoped it would, but you just had to keep going and hope for the best.
And those words that are now almost infamous, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan.
Right, although one of the things I talk about in the book was the number of people, who, including my then girlfriend, now fiance, who didn't have health insurance and were eventually able to get it through healthcare.gov, which was a tremendous number of people, and how, to me personally, going on that website, even when it wasn't perfect, with her, picking a plan, and have that moment when she had insurance and I knew that the person I loved could see a doctor if she got sick. And that was a beautiful and just an amazing moment, and it makes all of the difficult days that public service is about, it made it all worthwhile.
I like the fact that you had helped the president write many of the jokes, the White House Correspondents' Dinners. You helped craft the president's White House Correspondents' speeches, which I can't imagine is easy. Tell me about that.
Well, joke writing, you want it to look easy when the president or whoever is telling the joke, but it is really hard. We would go into the room, into the Oval, to give about 40 jokes to the president. And those 40 jokes came from 600 jokes that had been pitched by all sorts of people. This was a team effort. And you need to get every joke exactly right, because the difference between an okay joke and a good joke is the difference. That's 1 or 0. It's kind of life or death for that joke.
Were there ever moments where the president's like, yeah, I don't feel so good about that joke?
There were moments when he would sort of, it was firm, he would kind of say, I don't know if I get that one. And that was a sign, okay, that one's not going to go in the script. And because we knew that we weren't going to get to rehearse this in front of a live audience, we knew that we wanted every joke that was going to come out of the president's mouth to go well. If he didn't feel really good about it, we weren't trying to convince him to do it. We would say, okay, we're going to replace that with one that he really enjoys.
It's hard to forget that White House Correspondents' Dinner when the rest of the world had no idea that they were close to getting Osama bin Laden. Tell me about that.
Well, that dinner came about 4 weeks after I started at the White House. I was totally the new guy. I had pitched a joke that involved the words bin Laden in a punchline, and the president cut it. And I wasn't in the room, I just saw the draft. And I thought, well, this is a bad idea. My joke was really good. I almost emailed the chief speechwriter at the time, John Favreau, and John Lovett, who was running the process, and said, you need to listen to me. And luckily, I did not do that. And then the next night, like everybody else, I learned that the bin Laden raid had happened. We got Osama bin Laden and thought, oh, okay. I am very glad I did not hit send on that email the night before.
Among the memorable White House correspondence speeches you helped draft was the one where he attacks President Trump.
Well, I should say I didn't write the specific jokes where President Obama kind of just tore into Donald Trump, but I was in the cheap seats for that particular correspondence center, and I did watch the back of Donald Trump's head as he turned bright red.
Donald Trump is here tonight. Now, I know that he's taken some flack lately, but no one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing?
A lot of people point to that moment saying that's when he decided to run.
I don't think so. I mean, President Obama didn't just make fun of Donald Trump for no reason. Trump had been on this birther tour all over Fox News. He was a darling in the conservative media because of this, and that's the reason President Obama decided to, put him in his place a little bit. And one of the things I remember from that moment is it wasn't just Democrats who thought that it was funny that President Obama was saying this stuff. Republicans thought he was a total buffoon. And it was really remarkable to see that, and then just a couple years later see him as the Republican nominee and see the rest of the party fall in line. It was a very strange experience.
If you were to write a speech for the current president, for President Trump, what advice would you have for him?
My advice would have nothing to do with speechwriting and everything to do with what he's actually trying to do for the country. I mean, one of the things I learned at the White House is the words that a president speaks don't matter nearly as much as the actions that they're taking and what they're trying to affect. So in my personal opinion, the biggest challenge for Donald Trump is not a rhetorical one.
What do you think stays with you after all these years that you spent two administrations, two terms inside the White House? What stays with you after all this time?
One of the things that I wanted to write about, and one of the things that really has stuck with me, is that public service is about the important people in the inner circle, absolutely, but it's also about all of the people like me and my colleagues, young people who aren't necessarily making history every single day, but show up, do their best, and just try to make their little part of the operation work the way it's supposed to, and that's how you make change.
David Litt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.